Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special session, Grow Your Business with Apple, hosted by YourStory. And today, we are going to explore how behind every successful entrepreneurial journey lies a series of tough choices. And few are tougher than the ones about technology because the right technology tools not just make work easier, they help move a business faster, build lasting trust with customers, and attract the best talent. To discuss all of this today, we are joined by three incredible leaders who have navigated these challenges and built technology first businesses that are shaping the future of work and growth in India. We have with us Sachin Bhatia, founder and chief growth officer at Exotel, Sunil Patro, founder and CEO of Signeasy, and Kiran Darisi, co-founder and CTO of Atomicwork. I wanted to start by talking about what growth really means today because that has been at the heart of building every business. In a recent Your Story survey, we found that 94% of founders see growth as their top priority. But the way they define it varies. Sachin, I wanted to start with you first. Tell us a bit about Exotel. What are the problems you're solving? I'd love to hear how you define growth today. Is it scaling into new markets? Is it building stronger teams? And how has sort of technology helped you get there?
So Exotel is in the business of enabling businesses reliably talk to their customers. Channels may change. Yesterday it was branch, then a phone call, maybe WhatsApp, and tomorrow maybe bots. And we do this for 7,000 plus customers in 60 plus countries. If you have worked with HDFC Bank or Flipkart or Ola or Myntra or Swiggy, most of them use Exotel as a platform to communicate with consumers. Outside of telcos, I think we are the biggest aggregators of conversations. We do 20 billion conversations a year. So when I think of growth at Exotel, we think in three dimensions. The first is, how do you go upmarket and take more wallet share into large enterprises? So maybe today the enterprise uses me for sales and service, but not for collections. How do I take more wallet share? That's one dimension of growth. The second dimension is, can I expand beyond my core market? So India, we do about 80% from India, 20% from international. And one of the focuses we have is, can we now expand to Saudi Arabia, UAE as core markets and make them into large markets for us? So that's the second dimension. And third is what I think is the most exciting. With AI, I think our space is one of the most disrupted spaces, which I think is an opportunity. So human-to-human conversations are shifting from people to bots or a mix of bots and humans. And number of AI conversations or portion of revenue that we do from AI is the third dimension of growth. So our job is to sort of grow in all three. And the third one is a pure technology-led growth.
Sunil, I wanted to come to you now. Signeasy began with a simple idea of making it easy to sign documents on the go. Could you walk us through what Signeasy does today and the problems it's solving for your customers? And as you have scaled into global markets, what does growth mean to you?
We are an end-to-end solution for contract management and intelligence that includes e-signatures, workflows, approvals, anything that a business can think of, from preparing to sending a document for signature to tracking to all the way to analyzing insights from these business documents, right? And it made a very natural sense for us to build the first version of our mobile application on iOS. Attention to detail for quality, the reliability, and also the fact that, hey, it has to be secure, it has to be safe, it has to be delightful, gave us like a perfect platform to build a mobile app for. And I think as soon as we built it on App Store, the App Store's reach gave us the global access to like entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals and executives who really trusted Apple's platform for various reasons, right? We're talking about all of these folks value their time, value their attention, And as the journey progressed, we realized that iOS has become a launchpad, and over the years we expanded to a desktop version, the web, SaaS, and API version for developers. And one thing we have realized is when you rely on distributing your app through Apple's App Store, you sort of get to work with customers in all industries, businesses of all sizes, from small companies to fast-growing startups to enterprises. And also these folks come from different backgrounds, from HR, legal, sales, operations, or finance. So we learned a lot of diverse use cases and pain points. And that allowed us to think about, hey, we need to build a solution that is truly global, that is truly horizontal, and we can pick and choose which problem statements make more sense for us to solve inside a platform. So now today, I think where Signeasy stands in terms of our growth, we have more than 10 million users, tens of thousands of paying business customers in over 150 countries. And a few years ago, we crossed a big milestone of processing more than 100 million contracts on our platform. And then finally, deliver it with trust, right? And trust comes naturally when you build a solution which is reliable, which is performant, which is high quality. That sort of sums up the moment for where Signeasy's journey is today, which is when you build a delightful, innovative, and a trustworthy product, that's the chance when it can truly go global.
Sachin and Sunil, you both spoke of Apple enabling scale, global expansion, really holding on to the reliability and customer delight factor for your businesses. Kiran, coming to you now, could you tell us what Atomicwork does and what has been foundational to building this company?
Atomicwork is like an native service management. It's a modern alternate to legacy ITSM tools like ServiceNow or Jira. What it essentially does is it unifies IT, HR, and operations through combining conversational support, enterprise search, and intelligent automation in one single suite, right? When you actually try to sell it to enterprises, right? So the first thing, the credibility comes from the clarity in terms of what you're solving and how you're solving for, right? So if you take traditional ITSM tools, they are actually built to manage tickets, but Atomicwork is actually built ground up to actually reduce them or eliminate them altogether, right? And also when you sell it to enterprises, which is where the trust or the credibility is not a nice to have, but it's like an foundational bit where you can able to build your product on. And when enterprises buy a software, they are not just buying just a software, right? So they're actually betting on a long-term relationship with you. So they wanted to bet on your vision so that you actually go from 0 to 100 along with them, right? So for that, we had a multi-layered approach in terms of how we build the credibility around. We have like 4 key pillars which we actually trust upon, right? Foremost is the founding team itself. So me and my co-founders actually built startups from 0 to IPO, where we build for large enterprises. So that gives us CIOs the enough confidence to say that, oh, these guys built systems at scale and also secure, right? So that is the first entry point for us. And the second one is the investors you back us, which are like elite investors who actually back this. But more than that, we have around 40 plus CIOs and technology leaders who actually back this, right? And the third one is where we invested heavily from day one in our security posture as well as compliance. So we haven't waited for this amount of time to do our certifications or compliances. It is actually taken from the day zero approach. We are very proud to say that we have these global companies like Zora or Pepper Money who uses Atomicwork, where they moved from like the bigger companies like Jira Service Management or ServiceNow. It actually is very tangible, where they say the volume of tickets actually got reduced by 60%, and their resolution time actually improved 80%, right? It's not that, okay, like a story of we telling that, okay, ours is the best software, but we are actually showing a social proof saying that, okay, this is how actually companies used to actually solve their problem using Atomicwork, right? How they gave this best employee experience, or how they automated their internal workflows using Atomicwork.
Sunil, coming to you, different teams have different needs, right? Developers need raw performance, while designers and marketers handle large creative projects. How do you make sure that everyone in your teams, have the right tools to stay productive and deliver their best work?
Yeah, Ipsita. So, I've always believed that, for our teams to do the best work of their lives, which is to build truly global products, high quality products, they have to be enabled with the best tools at work, right? And it sort of ties with the philosophy that, greatness inspires greatness. Apple products just works, right? For us to be able to commit to doing something great, you have to figure out what is it that your team believes in. And when we see this in our team, many of them already use iPhones and Macs in their personal lives. So when they come to work and use Macs, it gives them a very familiarity and also gives them the seamlessness where they don't have to worry about whether it is work or it is life. It's all blended together, right? And also, more importantly, Apple's devices are just faster, more intuitive, more consistent. So it creates less friction, and our team can focus on creating value, spend less time on troubleshooting, right? Now, when it comes to our developers, of course, performance is key. And Macs are known for speed and reliability, so they can quickly build and test ideas. For our marketers and designers, it's the creative workflow, right? Visuals and copy, the design tools, and the inspiration they need to live daily so that they can think about creating an inspiring brand and fulfilling that promise and trust. So overall, I think it's, to say it in simpler words, when the tools and the environment that you work in, they inspire you, you could create great work for others.
What is the biggest difference, that keeps your teams productive, and how do you sort of push that productivity and performance with the help of technology?
For us, when I talk about no frustrations for engineers on their line of work, right? What is the biggest two things I can able to do it is having their powerful local environments where they can able to get their work done locally, right? And the second one is how we can able to do switching of apps very, very easy, or making it so simple that it actually happens, right? Maybe I'll touch upon in terms of how we can able to have less friction for employees to actually be their day-to-day work, right? For example, every Atomicwork engineer gets an high-end MacBook Pro with a 64 GB RAM, right? What that means is you can able to build, test, as well as deploy the smaller ML models so that you can able to train it, test it, and you don't need to have that latency between your cloud CI servers to this, so where you can able to run the entire workloads on your laptop, right? And that is one. And the other one is we are fortunate to be having like an AI native company, right? Because we are not just building an AI native product, but we are also, as a virtue, the company is very AI native. When I say AI native, what that means is first is modern foundation. So we are actually built our app in AI as a core system. We are not a bolt-on approach, which you have a lot of technical debt. You need to actually work on it and then come to this, right? We are actually building it from the core so that you can actually build all the pieces in a very modern fashion, right? And the second one is we are actually have on the AI layer as an ensemble architecture, which is basically you can able to plug and play any models based on the use case you have, and which can able to give you better flexibility as well as better performance to do it. And the third is like how our culture itself is built. So we have two core values when you talk about Atomic. One is like agency, the other one is the impatience, which means that we give a lot of persistence to the velocity which you are in, because I don't want my engineers to actually go debug that the tool is not working. I want them to actually work on the hard problems to actually solve it, right? When you take in how the culture is built, as well as how the tooling is done, and how tools are actually can work on the hardware, right? All these three things actually combined will actually give us like a flow of work, right? So that our engineers are not limited by the hardware for the creativity. So that is that get taken for them so that they can able to expand and they will be always in the flow.
Sachin, come to you. You've shifted Exotel to Apple. From a performance and productivity perspective, what made this choice, for you as a company, and especially where reliability is mission critical?
Two very contrasting reasons. First is most of the founders, and I think whole of my generation has been a fanboy. When we shifted from mid-market startups to enterprises, reliability in our product, security in our product became a very critical ingredient of the offering. So when I talk to the largest banks in the country or in the region, they are looking at somebody who can be absolutely reliable and scalable. Now, we were talking about, of course, startups allow you to make mistakes, but enterprises wanted to be correct on the first shot. Now, how do we message this to our engineer that you need to be reliable on the first go? Apple is something that we relate with, it just works. Apart from the tooling and the reasons that Kiran has already mentioned, it was also a very strong messaging from our side that we need you to be inspired by the best. The second is our space I talked about is getting disrupted. Like the word is right now divided into whether there'll be humans in contact center or whether there'll be complete AI in contact center, right? And we were taking a very interesting stand that will be a blend of, we call it harmony, that AI and humans will coexist in contact center. This was a very new stand. Again, to communicate that you can take strong, bold stands. And every time Apple has launched something, it has been something that has never been thought of. We are going IPO in the next 24 months, and hence security became a critical thing for internal IT also. And some of these things are very easy to do when you're doing it with Apple because the operating system and the hardware itself is very secure. While we were messaging reliability and security, we were also messaging about new design, taking bold stands. So it was more messaging. So when an engineer walks for the first time and we hand over the MacBook or a MacBook Pro, that's a message from our end that this is the standard that we are looking for. And that helps us sort of message it out to everybody in the organization. When the sales guy is going out and talking to a bank, he opens a MacBook and starts talking to a bank. And that's an underlying message that this company is reliable. They're using the best in the world, and scalability and reliability would not be an issue. So that's how we think about it.
Technology doesn't alone build products or solutions, the people also do. And we've seen across companies that the tools you provide to your teams really become a big part of how you're able to attract the best talent and give the best solutions to your customers. Sunil, wanted to come to you here that at one point Signeasy highlighted Apple devices for everyone on your careers page. Why was that such an important part of your hiring journey, and how has it sort of shaped your employee creativity, morale, and how has it helped you build solutions for your customers?
Yeah, so I just want to talk about a little bit of change in shift in mindset that happened when I started as a founder to now where we are, with the team, with the set of customers globally, and the fact that we have evolved as a company. So when you start as a founder, you think you're working for your customers, right? Your job is to focus on customers' problems and then you're solving for those. But you quickly realize as you scale, that's no longer going to be practical. And you have a shift in your mindset. And now I have to work for my employees, take care of my employees so that they can take care of customers, right? So when you speak about we putting on our website, Apple devices for everyone, it's not just a marketing slogan, right? It ties back to, am I taking care of my employees? So the idea is to put a statement of intent that if our employees are working at Signeasy, Signeasy cares about quality, reliability, and craftsmanship, right? And what better way to show that than just giving MacBooks or any Apple devices to them? But I want to touch upon one subtle thing that we also have felt, which is our customer-facing teams, when they show up in front of a customer for a demo or for a presentation, I think it certainly reinforces a value that Signeasy cares about quality, and that sort of matters, for the customers and prospects or partners we are doing business with. And internally, it also builds a lot of confidence for our employees that they can be the best versions of themselves in front of our customers. So overall, I believe that when you're empowering your employees with best tools and best devices, it's not just for productivity, but it also raises the bar for everything that we do, what we build, and how we show up in the world. So I think, that's what I believe in, and so far it has worked out well for us.
Sachin, coming to you now, in the past you've spoken about how technology can reinforce culture. How do tools that you provide shape employee experience and even hiring at Exotel?
Have you seen a kid or a teenager open a gaming console? I think a very similar experience with adults is if they open a Apple device. Like there is joy, there is warmth.
The awe of it.
Yeah. So, and that still holds true. Like from the first iPhone till today, from the first MacBook, when I opened it, it was a Mac iBook. Like there was this. So I think there is this emotional connect that people have with a device, and we want that to be connected to them coming into Exotel. So I think that is, we have personally experienced it because we were fanboys. I think that, if I may call it dopamine, but there is joy there. Right? So I think this is one element that we think is important. The second is I talked about that our space is getting disrupted. The contact centers have existed, I think our business now has existed for 14 years, but never in our lives we have felt the need to change fast, disrupt. And it's true for a lot of businesses these days, right? You guys are disrupting the big guys. I as a leader, Shivko as a CEO, we can talk about we need change, we need innovation, but beyond words, your actions, your decisions actually communicate this to your employees. So when we did this shift, right, it was also a message that we now need to move really, really fast, and that is culture. So just by that action and saying that we want things to be as reliable, as innovative as what we are giving you guys, and a lot of it that then gets benchmarked, I think it becomes culture without even communicating it, right? So I think people just don't listen to your words. They will also observe actions. And most culture can be built only by action. How you would, for example, I think parenting is all about showing and not talking. So I think building culture is also about doing and showing and not just talking. So we thought of it as one of that steps.
Kiran, coming to you, now you're in one of the most compute-hungry spaces, right, where engineers push machine to their limits. How does giving your teams powerful and reliable tools like Macs impact not just their productivity, but also the kind of talent that you attract and the culture that you're building for?
Yeah, so maybe I'll give you like a little bit of a precursor to this, right? So as Sachin was telling, there is an aha moment you will actually do the MacBooks. In my previous company, which is Freshworks, even before we paid salaries for us, we bought MacBooks. So everybody has MacBooks, right? So it is covered in Forbes if you want to check. And even before that, in Zoho, it's like when is the first app store is being released, Zoho is doing mobile apps, and I was one of an iOS developer who is doing it. I got a Mac, right? So where I need to do it. But at that point of time, it's like the computer Mac, right? So where it's a desktop. So I actually went into this envy state, right? So where people envy because it's actually you have this device, which we don't have it because I'm working on it so that I got it, right? But coming back to Atomicwork, incidentally, right? I don't see it any startup not putting in their careers page, okay, what is the hardware they are actually giving to their employees. It's very, very hard to attract the talent, right? The space which we are in, where the AI engineers are very competitive, right? So which is like, it's very hard to actually attract the talent to commit. We put it on our careers page like Sunil had, where we say that you get this premium Apple hardware, right? Which sends the signal saying two things, right? One is actually like we respect your time, right? So that you're coming in, you're actually doing the things for Atomicwork, but we respect your time. The second one is, okay, we will help you to do your best of the best work, with us, right? So that for that you need tooling, you need tools to do it, the hardware to do it. So that is how it actually signals it. And the second part is like for us, the core value, one of the core values is the taste, which is we sweat the details in terms of what is the quality of the output we can able to showcase to our customers, right? So the reinforcement of Mac devices, which actually built for design and quality, it reinforces in day to day, saying that, okay, I'm actually building for design and quality, right? There is no explicit way to tell that. It is actually being inculcated and coming into one-to-one. But that follow-up is, okay, yeah, I'm actually doing design and quality. What the other thing which actually dimension adds to it is mastery, right? So that is also one of our core values, right? Let's say if you want to do mastery, which means that you need to be in that flow. To actually complete it, to be in that flow, you need to have a hardware device which actually will just work, right? You need to not be fighting your device to make it work. It just works for you, right? And the lastly, we are in a space, it is very compute hungry, where the lot of these compute we need to work on, and you need to have this huge local environments where you can able to compile the code in a blazingly fast way. All the services should work so that you make any change, it just you can able to see it then and there, right? So it's not that, okay, I'll deploy to the cloud so that I will wait for that latency. I will actually wait for a few minutes to see it. It is not going to work. It should be inside you, which actually can just work. So that we are on a service oriented architecture, right? So which means that you need that X amount of hardware to be on your local system to work, right? So these are the pathways we see it, how we keep our culture intact by having this compute heavy industry, right? So that is where we are.
Here's an interesting observation. You see LinkedIn posts, which is the first LinkedIn post where people announce that they have joined a company. You will see two kind of posts. One is next to the biggest logo that they can find, there will be a picture, or there will be a picture of stuff that they have got.
That's
if
right.
there is the second picture, there's always an Apple device there. Just go and check it out once.
Very interesting observation.
Yeah.
It's literally like, they are showcasing that, hey, I've joined a place that respects me,
Correct.
and this is the device that
Correct.
shows that I'm best at my work.
Correct.
Very interesting point. As we talk about growth, building powerful teams, and delivering the best solutions for customers, another area that consistently comes up in conversations with founders is security. And especially for scaling companies, it's not just about sort of protecting data, it's also about doing it without the luxury of having massive IT teams. Just wanted to start with you, Sunil, on this, that your products handles very highly sensitive documents, contracts, legal papers, job offers. Now, trust is literally at the heart of this. How has security been a part of your journey as you have scaled your offerings at Signeasy?
So like you mentioned, trust is the heart of what we do just because of the nature of our product, right? Our customers range from CEOs to CFOs to head of HR, head of sales, head of IT, head of operations in companies of all sizes. And the fact that these are the most confidential, sensitive assets of the business, we intentionally designed our platform where trust is no longer a feature. It becomes a foundation for everything that we do. And that's where working with Apple's ecosystem, whether it is Apple devices, Macs or iPhones, we know that Apple treats security and privacy as sacred, whether it is messages, your calls, your contacts, your photos. And that philosophy naturally extends into how we work. For example, all of our developers work on Mac devices, and they handle the source code and design assets and all the critical infrastructure deployment related scripts and so forth. And using Macs, it gives us the absolute peace of mind, because we know that if for some reason this device gets lost or stolen, we don't have to worry too much. We can just use remote wipe tools to secure our IP, and that's a huge thing for us. When we think about adding functionality and at the same time adding security to our apps on iOS devices. From the early days, we relied on Touch ID and Face ID, which were the new innovations for biometric authentication. And we were one of the first e-signing apps to secure access to your documents and signatures on the go. And we even took it one step further, where we added these authentication signals to the audit trail of our signed documents, which is a very simple but a powerful way of establishing authenticity and integrity, that these signatures and files are really what they're supposed to be when a third person looks at a signed document, right? So that was very important to us. And as the platform has evolved, we had to believe in the same mindset. So we have added more and more layers of trust, whether it is two-factor authentication via one-time passcodes over email or SMS, supporting single sign-on for enterprise use cases, then SOC 2 certifications for data privacy, data confidentiality, and data reliability. And then finally, we run deep penetration tests. We have disaster recovery protocols in place. So this sort of touches upon the entire journey of what we build, how we build, and how we deliver value to our customers, right? When our customers now choose to use our product, they're not just looking at us as a capable and a valuable e-signature and contract management product. They are actually choosing to do business with a partner that considers trust and security as second nature. And that's a mindset that was encouraged when we launched our first apps on Apple. And coincidentally, that is the nature of our business because we deal with business contracts and signatures.
Now, Sachin, Exotel powers millions of business conversations every day for large enterprises where trust and reliability are non-negotiable. How do you think about security in that context, where you have to keep your sort of communication seamless and protected without slowing down the pace of your growth?
Yeah, so ours is the space which is, for example, there's a lot of personal identifiable information, or PII as it is called, like somebody interacting about their credit card with a bank and that is getting recorded, or simple things like what you have ordered on e-commerce that is being discussed on phone, and all this is PII data. And all this is stored in the cloud. So, of course, a lot of our technology is heavily regulated. It has to be in country. So India data has to be in India, Saudi Arabia data has to be in Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. We are now an ISO certified provider. We are also looking at DPDP now, which is the India Digital Protection Act. A lot of this is processes. So I still remember early days when we were small, a lot of this with one IT. Today, if I don't have a CISO in my company, a lot of banks will not even talk to us, right? So we had to actually hire a CISO for our own organization because the processes and the regulation demands it. Also, all machines have to be completely managed. All software that we can install or our employees can install has to be completely managed. Nobody can take off documents off. I think a lot has happened in the enterprise adoption of Apple. So a lot of these security providers, firewall providers, now they are building natively. So for example, your Apple login is now integrated into the two-factor authentication OAuth that we have. And by the way, the notification for that comes to me on my Apple Watch, and I just say yes, because it's already authenticated against my biometric ID. But apart from this all need of security, one of the other challenges is our employees are now, we have folks in Dubai, we have folks traveling across, we have offices in Delhi, Bangalore, and Mumbai. Now, how do you make sure that access to data, for example, let's say a support engineer, what can they access, right? What all servers can somebody else access to? And even me as a founder today cannot just say that I will have access to it because the process doesn't allow it and it has to go through an approval process. I think that change was a big change for us. And that was also the time when we shifted to Apple. So all our enterprise management tools, machine management, remote management tools were first time done on Apple devices, right? So those were big changes, but it has gone off very, very smooth and as less frustrating as it could be.
Right. It's a very important point because when you scale, there are so many things that can go out of hand, but security cannot.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
It has to be more and more and more
more.
focused on as you
Absolutely.
scale.
Absolutely. Now, Kiran, coming to you now, Atomic Work sort of grew rapidly past 80 people, even before you hired a dedicated IT team. Sachin just spoke about scaling and how do you manage that. So, wanted to ask you, how did you think about managing that phase smoothly, where you had to keep your devices, datas, and workflow secure without creating the complexity for your teams?
Yeah, so lucky for me, it's actually like we are building the product for it. So it's actually to make things easier. So there are two things to it, right? As you said, it's actually until we have like 80 people in the company. Now we have only 83, right? So we don't have like a dedicated IT person who is actually looking at it, right? So how you can able to provision it, etc. So we did two things. One is dogfooting our own product. So we build for IT teams as well as onboarding flows, offboarding flows, support flows. All these things are actually being dogfooted from our own product to us. And the second one is one strategy is like how we adopted Apple's ecosystem in that process, right? The first one is the dogfooding, right? So where our IT, not even IT, right? I also actually had a journey where I know when somebody is actually getting onboarded, I want this access, this access, etc., and also this documentation, or maybe like a first calendar invite for the manager. All these things are actually being codified, so that once they do it, so that the journey actually triggers, so everything actually runs very smooth. The second on actually betting on Apple's ecosystem is like, so Apple comes with like a very good security protocols, right? So which is basically 5 vault or data encryption at rest or zero touch policy, etc., right? So that when people actually onboard, they are from any part of the country, we ship this MacBook. Once they open, everything is actually configured and it will be registered in our MDM, so that we don't need to do anything extra for them to actually be up and running, as well as they are already up and running, as well as they are secure, right? So those two things are actually do it, right? If that also comes into the morale of the employee when he joins, right? Because security as a thing should run from background, not as like a cumbersome steps they need to go through, do check, and so that they can able to go to the fifth point or a sixth point, right? But when even it runs on the background, because you actually have this zero touch policy where everything is installed so that you could start working, even you have single sign on so that you can able to sign in and you can able to get going, right? But we don't need to worry about there is a data leakage or what is actually need to upgrade, what is the patch we can able to do it, etc., right? So we can able to manage that entire thing remotely. We don't need to have the employee to actually go through this process, right? Where he don't need to wait or fight with the tools to get his work done. It's just that it just works out of the box. Even your personal Apple devices does the same. You buy a new iPhone, you actually just place together, right? No cables, nothing, and you get everything what you have it in your old system to this. It's the same thing with it, right? Yeah, you upgrade your MacBook Pro, actually the new MacBook Pro, etc. It's just like, okay, you're just connecting these two. You don't need any of these things to actually just do it. So your personal workflows are not so different from your enterprise workflows now, right? So it is actually same ecosystem how you get connected to.
Right. I want to ask all of you that, as you scale into enterprise markets and security, it becomes such an important conversation. What does it mean when you go to your customer? Does security become a part of your customer pitch? And do decision makers now expect businesses to sort of not only have security as a feature, but as a core part of your value proposition?
For us right now, think of it like enterprises, as I said, security is by design, but not an afterthought, right? It's not a nice to have feature, but it's an entire foundation for you when you are actually building the product. And also now there are two parts to the security, right? So one is your external security, which is like your web app how it is connected, etc. Now we get more complexity there because now the interfaces are becoming more conversational, as well as voice is another one which actually try to break it, right? That's why you keep seeing, oh, there is this jailbreak or that jailbreak in terms of the conversational interfaces. And there is internal security, right? That also matters as much as your external security. Because when you talk about a compliance, it is not only how your app will look like, but also how your internal workflow look like so that you can able to build it, right? Because you will actually be coding in your laptop and all your code base is there, and also you will be connecting to your production systems from your laptop, and how you're connecting it and what is the connection which is going to happen, all these things happens, right? This is on how there is a compliance and you are actually playing that playbook or a template onto your internal systems as well as external systems. But also there is another thing where what happens to my data? Like the customer has this biggest problem, right? So which is basically, oh, are you downloading it, or whether it is encrypted at rest, or how it is stored, or you can able to connect your external hardware to your laptop so that it can be leaked in different ways, etc. Right? Now the conversations became more trivial, where let's say in my space, every enterprise customer wanted to have one full length conversation with CTO to just to know what is your security posture, right? I have done it for every customer, every prospect happened. So they wanted to know how is your internal workflows work, right? So what devices you use, and can you able to trust those devices, whether those devices are compliant enough or not, or whether those devices flexible are enough or not when a new complaints come, right? So we are seeing this compliance maybe for a decade, right? So it's like multiple different certifications, you do it, etc., right? But now AI coming into picture, there is a new compliance came, right? Once you came in, which means that you should be automatically adhering to it, right? Otherwise, you need to change all your internal workflows just to actually maintain that compliance posture, right? So that is where once you have this internal ecosystem, which are streamlined, in our case, it is Mac, or Apple ecosystem, right? We have different varieties of Apple devices across the spectrum. CEOs has different, engineers has different, designers has different, etc. Right? But we all actually follow same policy where we can able to apply, so that it's as easy for us to actually just deploy this policy through our MDM, and it actually just works, right? We don't have that heterogeneous system where we can say that, okay, oh, this works on this, maybe there is a driver problem on this, so that it doesn't work. It just seamlessly works on your all the devices which are there.
You asked about whether it is critical, non-critical. Let me give you some examples. So if you want to serve a bank and you are processing any sort of customer data, RBI has a regulatory mandate on what your application should do. So it's not about just bank and their CISO. There is actually a policy by the regulator. And the same is true for SAMA in Saudi Arabia. So whether you have implemented a backup system for your core application or not is part of the regulation. So anybody who is looking to serve large enterprises where you are processing customer data or PII data, I think like you'll have to start talking about security on day one. Otherwise, they'll not even talk to you. And all the messaging that you do, one is all the standards that you follow. Second is the devices that you use. All that plays a role in them selecting you as a vendor.
Yeah, I have an interesting perspective here. I don't think security is only a conversation now for enterprises, right? Like we sell to a lot of SMBs, small to mid-sized businesses. And the two trends that we are seeing is they also equally care about your security features, whether it's by design or by foundation in your product, and also your own compliance, right? And those two trends are primarily caused because companies are able to stay leaner and they're able to serve enterprise. Their end customers are enterprises,
Right.
and we are selling to SMBs. So these SMBs care a lot about if they're using a software from us, it will be questioned by their enterprise customers. Hey, what sort of security protocols or compliance protocols are you following? And the second trend here is, employees are also more distributed, right? So they work in different geos. They are no longer behind a corporate VPN or a intranet. So that means, the IT folks in this, the IT buyers or procurement buyers, they care a lot about security, even though they haven't reached the scale of thousands of employees. There are maybe 100 folks or 200 folks, but it's an important conversation when they are choosing to buy any software.
Sunil, as we speak about cost, I wanted to understand, how do you see cost in your business, and how do you see the return on investing in Apple, not just for your current workflows, but as infrastructure for scaling globally and the years ahead?
So truly investing in Apple as a true partnership, in both using Apple devices at work and building apps for the App Store ecosystem, has been one of the best decisions in the company's history. And the ROI has shown up in multiple dimensions, from being a part of building great culture and retaining talent, growth, and also our global reach.
Now, Kiran, high performance hardware sort of can look like a really big investment upfront. But for Atomicwork, how do you think about ROI?
For us, it's actually like instead of doing what is the cost of investment, it is like cost of ownership. Where we don't want to look at the sticker price and say that, okay, this is what I'm actually investing in, or this is my initial cost to even manage it, right? So the ROI, I actually look at it as like, let's say when you talk about productivity gains, so think of as simple as you are actually compiling a code base, right? If it actually saves 5 minutes on a better hardware like MacBook, and you do that repetition multiple times in a day and multiple times in a week, as well as multiply with number of engineers you can actually have it. So that's an immense gain, right? Because you are actually giving back that productivity time back to the engineer, who is your valuable asset inside your startup.
So literally, time is money here.
Yeah. Right. So, and the second one is like, it just works, right? So, which is like a fewer support tickets for you to deal with. And for a company of our size, where you don't have like an IT team to actually take care of your IT support tickets, so which means that you need some hardware which just works. So when you compare with what are all the variations you can able to have to deal with the support tickets, you are on that Apple ecosystem, which means that it just works. So there are no support tickets or very few support tickets for us to actually deal with, right? Maybe most of the support tickets is like, okay, there is a new Apple device, maybe I should buy, right? So not more than that. So the third one is on the longevity of it. So you actually buy these devices, when is the refresh cycle you do it, right? So it is like not even in your personal life. On an enterprise life, in terms of what is that residual value you can able to carry forward, and what is the real value of that asset after 3 years also matters, right? Because a MacBook after 3 years actually values way higher than any other laptops, right? For when you think about cost or investment, that also matters, because after 3 years you are actually still creating some value to it, right? You are actually not trashing it, right? And the last one for us is the opportunity cost, which is basically, let's say, if I'm not bringing back the time, which means that I am actually not giving them the flow of work to be on or be creative to do something, right? It's an opportunity cost for us, whether can I bring back that time so that I can be more productive, do things which are useful for Atomicwork rather than doing anything just working on your tool.
Your fantastic insights for this session, Grow Your Business with Apple, hosted by YourStory. And, we look forward to seeing that how Apple is part of your journey as you grow, scale, and, build for the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.